Hey everyone, welcome back to Launch Codes Football. My name is Chris,
And I'm Chelsea.
and today we are on episode 46. Woo, let's go.
Getting closer and closer to 50 every week.
I know, that's kind of crazy. We've made now 46 episodes.
It's been a long time going. Can't believe we've been doing it for as long as we have.
I know, right? And honestly, I don't know. I've appreciated the support we've gotten, and while there's been ups and downs through it, I've still enjoyed doing this overall. I don't know. It's
For
just a
sure.
fun thing to do. So, anyways, we got a little bit of a different episode coming at you guys today. We have some not necessarily news this time. We kind of were like, you know what, the season's about to start soon, but everyone's just kind of prepping. So we wanted to do a little bit of fun topics and some opinion based things here. So Chelsea, are you ready today?
Yeah, I'm ready. I mean, all of these are based around fantasy football. And when fantasy football season starts back, that there's going to be some opinions being thrown around.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, here's what we're going to do. Today we're going to start with a topic or a section more like called Start One, Bench One, Cut One. If you don't know what that is, where have you been this whole time? Come on, get with it. Just kidding. If you don't know what that is just you basically have three players and you choose to start one, you choose one to bench, and you choose one to cut. I think this is going to bring up some controversy. I'm ready for it. And I definitely am curious to know what everyone thinks down in the comments below. So please feel free to comment on each of these parts here. So, anyways, Chelsea, I want to get your opinion on this first. So, the way I kind of set this up was I wanted to try and pick quarterbacks that I thought were of similar skill. So, this is all quarterback related. I just think it's more fun to do quarterbacks, and a lot more people know about them and their positions. So, let's go for it. So, Chelsea, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. So, the first set of quarterbacks we've got start one, bench one, cut one. Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray. Go.
Okay, so I want to preface, first of all, with this one. Not sure why Kyler Murray is thrown in with Joe and Josh, because I think it's pretty obvious that he's the one who sits.
Dang.
And comparing stats, I feel like it's also very obvious. No hate towards Kyler Murray. I mean, he was 24-10 last year, touchdown interception. So that's by no means bad. Personally, I feel like with Burrow and Josh Allen, you could have stuck Patrick Mahomes in here over Kyler Murray, just because I feel like Mahomes is unarguably better. That's just my preface. So if y'all want to get salty about the fact that I don't think that Kyler Murray should be up here with Joe Burrow and Josh Allen, please let me know. I will accept comments. So yes, cut Murray. Sorry, Murray. Um, Between start and bench, I mean, probably start Josh Allen, bench Joe Burrow, and then cut Murray. I mean, after Josh Allen's spectacular performance last year in the playoffs, I mean, I just feel like it's hard to go against him when it comes to these three. Not that Joe Burrow and Kyler Murray aren't bad. I mean, obviously not. I mean, obviously Burrow made it to the Super Bowl over Josh Allen, so he had to be doing something right. But I'm still going to go with Josh Allen. I think that he's just all around better than both of these guys, even with them all being pretty similar.
Fair enough. I think that I'm going to go with start Joe Burrow, bench Allen, cut Murray. Sorry, Murray.
So you're riding the Murray train too, eh?
Look, I just
Or
don't
more
think
like
that
jumping off, I guess.
between these two, I think that, I mean, let's be honest. If we look at the games, if we look at the clutch gene, if we look at all of that, Joe Burrow and Josh Allen have shown they can play in big time playoff games. I'm sorry, Kyler Murray hasn't really shown that. Now, that's not all his fault.
Oof.
I'm not saying that everything that happens is just, all because of the quarterback or there's so much blame on him. But I'm sorry, they made the playoffs this year and they went from 7-1, 7-0 to really just irrelevant. I mean, It was not good. It was not a good playoff for them. Murray did not have a great game. So in my opinion, as of right now, I'd say bench or cut Murray. The reason I'm going with Joe Burrow over Josh Allen, I think that, well, it's kind of funny. I think that Joe Burrow would be able to last longer without injury, but isn't it ironic that Joe Burrow is also the one that tore his ACL his rookie year? Haha. So I get it. Haha, Chris, you don't know anything. No, I think I know what I'm talking about here. And I think overall, in the longevity of their careers, I think Joe Burrow will last longer. He's a pocket player, and he's clutch. He is not afraid of the big moment. He can throw in the pocket. He's accurate. He knows what he's doing. He does kind of throw a lot of picks, but that's also, I think, something that he can fix. I believe that. Josh Allen, his first few years was not that great. Come on. I know, Chelsea, you're giving me that face right now, but he was not that great. But now look at him. He is arguably, he's like top 3 for Josh Allen. But I think Joe Burrow, I'm just going to start and take on my team just because, one, he's younger. He's cheaper right now.
Not by that much.
Not by a much, I guess. But I don't know. I just like Burrow as well. I think he's clutch. I think Allen is clutch too. I think 100% it was not his fault that they lost to the Chiefs. He played a really great game. So, but I think Burrow, man, there's just something different about him to me.
There was something different about him. Why didn't he win the Super Bowl?
I think the Rams were the better team. They were definitely the better team overall. But
I'm
Joe
just playing
Burrow,
devil's advocate. He tried his best.
Exactly. All right, next set of quarterbacks we got. All right, this is a little bit of drop off in my opinion. A little bit.
This is not a little bit. This is a lot of it.
Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo. All right. I am going to go with start Cousins because honestly, Kirk Cousins had a pretty good year. He's not the best quarterback in the league, but he can at times play very, very good. I think he has the highest skill ceiling of all these quarterbacks, and he can put up numbers on offense. So I'm going to say start Kirk Cousins here. Kirk Cousins. This is difficult between Ryan Tannehill and Garoppolo.
You know who to cut. Come on now.
Okay, on one hand, Garoppolo under the right system can succeed. But on the other, man, like sometimes, like against Dallas, he did not look good. Now he was hurt, allegedly. He was hurt, and that's, I'm not saying he's lying. I'm just saying that's the report. He was hurt. But Tannehill has also he's looked really good at times. But I definitely think he relies, both of these guys rely so much on their run game. This is honestly such a toss-up for me. I feel like either one of them, I feel like they're both about the same. I guess I'm going to keep Tannehill. I think he's slightly better than Garoppolo. Some Titans fans probably hate me right now, but they'll be all right. I'm going to go with bench Tannehill and cut Garoppolo here.
Yeah, looking at these three, first of all, I think Kirk Cousins takes way more heat than he deserves. Like, his touchdown to interception ratio is by no means bad, and I know that's not the only thing that makes someone a quote-unquote great quarterback. I've read quite a few reports from various, Vikings fans talking about how he just isn't clutch, how he can't get it done, etc., which I get, and obviously, that lessens, the amount of eliteness that a player has if you're not able to do that on a consistent basis. But compared to Tannehill and Garoppolo, I think that Cousins is by far and away the start. Like, especially if you're only looking at yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and completion ratio, by far, Kirk Cousins. Like, yes, Kirk Cousins also relies on his running game because he has Dalvin Cook, who is arguably a top 5 back in the league. So to say that he doesn't rely on his running game, I don't think is true. But at the same time, like, he also has very strong receiver core. Like, he has Thielen and Justin Jefferson, and he's had good tight ends. Like, Dalvin Cook can catch too. So to say that I don't think that he relies on his running game nearly as much to the extent as these other guys do. Not to say that, he doesn't, because every quarterback does to some degree. But Dalvin Cook has been hurt a lot these past few years. And Kirk Cousins, generally speaking, has still looked pretty good. So definitely Cousins to start for me. I mean, between Tannehill and Garoppolo, I mean, you guys know my feelings on Ryan Tannehill. But even still, he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Like I'm gonna go the same route as Chris. I'm gonna say start Kirk Cousins, bench Tannehill, cut Garoppolo. I mean, Garoppolo versus Tannehill, one is on the trade block and one isn't. Obviously, that's not necessarily only due to Garoppolo's skill set, but I don't think that Garoppolo would be on the trade block if they did not feel confident in him to win them games and get them to a Super Bowl, which at this point in his career, he's pretty obviously not. I mean, people will argue like, yes, he's really clutch. Like, yeah, I mean, the dude can clutch up some games. Like, no one's gonna argue that. But in the same way that, not being clutch doesn't make you elite, in the same vein, like being clutch does not automatically make you elite either. Like you aren't clutch or not clutch based on that one trait. That's just not how it works. So yeah, sorry, Jimmy. I suspect that you'll be getting traded to the Jets after the Zach Wilson news dropped. So that'll be fun, I guess. Yay.
All right. Well, there you have it for that. So, all right, let's go with 3 more. Let me hit you with these. My opinion, this is an easy set for me. Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers. Chelsea, you go.
Okay. I mean, all 3 of them are obviously really good. I mean, they're all top 10, unarguably. I think the pretty obvious starter is Aaron Rodgers, considering he's won 2 MVPs back to back. They don't give out MVPs lightly, so if he didn't deserve them, he would not have gotten them. So I feel like that's pretty easy. Not that the others couldn't be the starter. I mean, situationally depending, I think they could be, but across the board, Rodgers is just better. I mean, all of these guys run, and obviously Rodgers does not run to the extent of a Lamar, but to only classify him as a scrambler, I don't know if that's entirely accurate. Like the dude can run, and especially for his age, like he's surprisingly fast still. So yeah, I don't think that's an argument. I'm gonna go with Rodgers as my start. Between bench and cut, I mean, if we're talking Wilson 4 years ago, Wilson bench, but after the past couple of seasons, just kind of seeing the decline that he's kind of appeared to have and the injuries that he's had, and, kind of seeing Lamar's ascension. Like, Lamar is not a prototypical quarterback. He's not going to have as many touchdowns. He's not going to have as many interceptions. He's not going to have as many passing yards because that's only half of his game. So to straight up compare him to dudes that are pure quarterbacks is, I mean, it is what it is. So just kind of seeing what path Wilson's career has taken up to this point, I'm probably going to go start Rodgers, bench Lamar, and cut Wilson, simply because I think that Wilson's career has started to go downhill a little bit, which not necessarily is entirely his fault. I mean, he was on a horrible team with no O-line where he literally got sacked like every play. Like they had the highest amount of sacks last year, I believe. So, a lot of it is not him. He didn't really have a running back that was consistent all year. He had no O-line. His defense was up and down. So to pin it all on him is not fair. But to say that his play had not declined at all, I feel like is also not entirely truthful. I think he'll rebound with the Broncos because I think they're a lot better. But even still, I'm still going to go ahead and cut him. Sorry, buddy. We cannot ride this time. No, let's ride. Sorry, buddy. Looks like you're going to be riding the empty roster spot.
Dang. Chelsea's savage with these picks today. I mean, there's no chill today. Well, for me, I'm gonna go with start Rodgers. I'm going to bench Russell Wilson and I'm going to cut Lamar. Because Aaron Rodgers he's still Aaron Rodgers. He is still, I would argue, better than these guys. He is one of the best quarterbacks in the league at this moment. And it's crazy some of the things that he can do. Russell Wilson, the reason I'm taking him over Lamar is because while I'm not trying to disrespect Lamar, I think he's got so many different skill sets, and I think that the man can just make some awesome plays, especially on his feet. I just think that if I was in a playoff game, I personally feel like you got to be able to throw the ball. It's not that Lamar can't throw the ball. I hate that nonsense. I don't think that's true. I just don't think he throws it as well as Russell Wilson. So
I can agree with that.
Yeah. And so Russell Wilson also still has some of that escapability in him. And yeah, I just think overall that Wilson, I mean, it's not that really they won a Super Bowl because of Russell Wilson. I would really argue that Russell Wilson has that ring because he had one of the best defenses of all time on his side. Not to say he didn't do well. He did exactly what he was supposed to. So I don't know, but you are right. Russell Wilson has struggled over the past couple years, but I'm still going to go with him over Lamar. I'm going to keep him on my team. So next, this one's tough. This one's like not fair, honestly, because this is too much. So cut one, start one, bench one, cut one. We've got Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady in his prime, and Peyton Manning in his prime. Oh man, Chelsea's sitting up for this one. I don't know if you guys are ready for this. I'll go first here, though. I'm going to start Tom Brady. He is, in my opinion, the best to ever do it. In a lot of people's opinion, he is. He doesn't make these spectacular plays, but he gets it done. That's the thing with him. He's not super flashy plays like Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, but he can get it done. He can win you games, and he will be clutch. He is very consistent, and he is super, super smart when it comes to football. I mean, the things that we don't see what he's doing, he's winning matchups at the line. Now, obviously, Patrick Mahomes and Peyton Manning are both doing those things too. And all three of these guys, I mean, Peyton Manning, Hall of Famer, Tom Brady, Hall of Famer, Patrick Mahomes very likely will be a Hall of Famer unless we have some dramatic drop off. But I'm going to go with start Brady. Now, that in his prime. This is prime Brady, too, not now, because then that's a whole different conversation. Now, who do I go with on my bench? Oh, wouldn't a coach love this, to have the choice between Patrick Mahomes and prime Peyton Manning? It's like, which one am I going to go with? Chelsea, you might hate me for this, but
I figured that's where this was going.
But I think I'm going to go with Mahomes. Mahomes offers you everything. Super accurate passing, incredible deep balls. He can literally do it all when it comes to throwing. He has the ability to escape the pocket if he's in trouble. He can run a little bit. And while he has struggled, like all quarterbacks at some point struggle, overall, he overcomes it. He's not afraid of adversity. When things do get tough, he can make it out. I know against the Bengals, he struggled, not going to lie. I think part of that was due to a lot of different things. But I think overall, if you have Patrick Mahomes coming down the field, you're pretty much in trouble. Man, came back with 13 seconds on the clock. I mean, what can you do about that? So
I have a follow-up question.
Mm.
So you're giving Patrick Mahomes more praise than you gave Tom Brady, so why not start him? Are you scared?
Because this one's hard to justify my pick. Tom Brady to me is a pretty easy one, because I'm like, man is like, he's the Michael Jordan of the NFL, in my opinion.
Or the LeBron James, depending on who you ask.
Oh man. Now we're really getting into it. I am not in the LeBron
James camp, by the way. I am wholly in the Michael Jordan camp.
Oh, man.
I, again, am playing devil's advocate.
He actually just signed like a big contract today. Kind
Yeah,
of funny.
2 whole years, almost $100 million. Whatever.
Hey man, you know what? Whether
Casual.
I still think he's great, but I would look, he puts people in the seats. That alone is worth the contract.
Even
So,
still, man, I mean, I know he's like the second best ever, but
why do you think like man, NFL players, they want to be NBA players. Look at that money you get for 2 years. Like that's crazy.
seriously. I mean, you
Anyways,
look at
yeah.
that makes baseball look like pocket change. I mean, a reliever signs a 1 year deal with a team for $3 million and they're like jumping up and down with joy. If an
Exactly.
NFL player signed a 1 year deal for $3 million, they're probably 38 and get 200 yards a year. So
That's crazy. But yeah, I don't know. I just think I'm gonna go with Patrick Mahomes in this situation. Chelsea, you can feel free to hate on me now.
all right. Well, see, this is particularly tough for me because there's my emotional top three, right? And then there's my I know this is actually how it is top three. Now, if we're talking my emotional top three, obviously I'm going to start Peyton, but I am a realist, people. Okay. I'm not one of those Colts fans. Leave me alone. I can hear you typing your comments. Okay. So this is kind of unfair though, because you're pitting the two best quarterbacks in NFL history against a guy that hasn't even finished his career. So and we don't even know if this is Mahomes' prime yet either. Like this might not even be his prime, right? So it's just kind of made out to be unfair to begin with, which you're smiling, which leads me to believe that was on purpose. Anyways, so I mean, like Chris said, I mean, I don't think there's much arguing that Tom Brady is first. And honestly, I don't think that Tom Brady being first needs that much justification. Like, he's Tom Brady. Everyone knows. He's at this point pretty much unarguably the best quarterback ever and sort of inarguably one of the best American athletes ever, like in all of sports. So to say that he's not the best is just, that's my emotional side. So reluctantly, I start Tom Brady, but I'll also win. So I mean, I'll be reluctant, but at least I'll be a reluctant winner, I guess. Um, Honestly, I think the bench one is harder than the start one. Um, I mean, I think it depends on what you want out of a quarterback, right? I mean, are we talking like Peyton Manning has like the best offensive line of all time, like right now? Or are we talking Peyton Manning had what he had in Indianapolis for most of his career? Because I feel like that would drastically change the standings if the second one was not true. Um, I don't know. They're just so different. Like, I think it's such a good comparison between Peyton Manning and Patrick Mahomes, just as kind of, an example of how the quarterback position has evolved since even the late 1990s. I mean, Peyton debuted in 1998. It's only 2022. Like, that's not even 25 years ago when he debuted. And you look at the difference between the quarterbacks that are not only playing in the league now compared to the Tom Brady's and the Peyton Mannings and the Ben Roethlisbergers and the Drew Brees. You look at those guys versus, the Josh Allens and the Patrick Mahomes and the Lamar Jacksons. And then even still, you compare those guys to the guys coming out, the CJ Strouds and the Arch Mannings and the Bryce Youngs, like just the way that the quarterback position is changing is fascinating. So I don't know. It's just hard. It just depends on what you want. Like if you want, in my opinion, the best NFL mind of all time, like you take Peyton Manning. Like Peyton Manning is unarguably one of the smartest NFL players that has ever graced the field and most likely will ever grace the field. He was just that guy. But if you want athleticism, you take Mahomes. Now, me personally, I've seen Peyton Manning win a lot more than I've seen Mahomes. And obviously, Manning's career is over. Mahomes is not. So, again, that's not really fair. But just watching the way that Peyton Manning picked apart defenses, I've never seen anyone else do that in the same way as him. Not even Tom Brady. And I think Tom Brady is better than Peyton Manning by a little bit. But even still, I think that Peyton Manning just was the best at just absolutely ripping a defense to shreds by himself with a terrible O-line, no names on defense, and a couple of superstars on offense. Basically, no running back for most of his career. I mean, he just was elite. So, because of that, I'm going to go with Peyton Manning. Not that Mahomes can't do that, and not to say that he couldn't potentially pass Peyton in that, part of his game one day, because we've seen Patrick Mahomes do the same thing, just in a very different way than Peyton did it. But even so, I just think Peyton was just the best at that, even over Brady. So I'm going to bench Peyton and cut Mahomes. But dang, if you ever had to choose between those three in real life, dang, I mean, I would take my bench, right? I mean,
Literally. I mean, that's trade bait right there. Anyways, tell me, let's just say maybe I did this on purpose. Maybe
I know you
did. Who
did.
knows?
You're just being hashtag manipulative over there. I see how it is.
No. I would never make Chelsea have to choose between her logical choice and her emotional choice.
Okay, well, the next time we do this, I'm going to make you decide who you like better, Cam Newton or Luke Kuechly.
Anyways, moving on. So next we have a major drop off from
Let's go.
No offense to these guys. I mean, that sounds terrible, but also
but is it a lie?
No. So between these three quarterbacks, start one, bench one, cut one, Chelsea, we got the GOAT, Mitchell Trubisky, the second GOAT, Daniel Jones, and the third GOAT, Drew Locke.
It's so bad.
So excited for this
so
one.
Bad.
I think it's hilarious. I think it's hilarious that it came right after, this whole thing.
They're literally all terrible. I mean, I think some are more terrible than others, but that is just personal opinion. I mean, hey, at least Drew Locke didn't freaking, trip over his own foot, because one of those guys did that, and it wasn't Drew Locke, so he has that going for him. I mean, Drew Locke is, arguably a bona fide starter right now, which is fun, on a terrible team, which is not fun, but, it is what it is. As for these three, I mean, I don't know. I think you should go first, Chris, because you just seem to take particular enjoyment in this trio of quarterbacks. So I pass the baton to you. I'll let you take this one.
All right. So between Trubisky, Daniel Jones, and Drew Locke. Man, this is tough. I don't want to start any of them, to be real. That sounds terrible, but also, okay, because they all come with their issues. Trubisky is not accurate. He has a very strong arm, and sometimes he can be like, wow, he just made an incredible throw. And then other times he will whiff so hard. It's just whoa, why? Daniel Jones fumbles all the time. He fumbles all the time. That's really bad. You can't be fumbling the ball like that all the time, And then Drew Locke, I'm sorry, he just he hasn't shown much to me. I'm just gonna be real here. Drew Locke has not shown me anything very special about him. He's a tall quarterback, so he has vision, but so is Trubisky. So I guess you can see, I guess, where I go with this. Trubisky will start for me because he has a cannon of an arm. So I'm okay, at least we can plan around. He can throw it deep. Daniel Jones can be the backup. because every once in a while he makes an incredible play, like a one-handed catch for no reason, even though he's a quarterback. And then we've got Drew Lock. I'm gonna cut him. I I don't know what else to say. I don't think he's been the best in the league. I think he's struggled, and that's why Denver sold him off. I mean, they tried to have a project to go around him, never worked out. He's gone and Wilson's there. That's how it works in the NFL. So unless Drew Lock really proved something this year with Seattle, this is my start, bench, and cut lineup here.
That was particularly entertaining. You looked like you were in pain the whole time you were talking about that.
It's so difficult.
I took great enjoyment in that. I will lead off with saying, apparently Mitch Trubisky looked great in his first preseason game this year, which matters so much. Not.
Okay. New team.
Yay. Hey, he's probably going to end up being the starter at first, though. Do I think that Kenny Pickett is going to steal it? Yes, it's just a matter of time. But he did look good the preseason. I mean, I know it's against like the fourth strings, but it is what it is. Also, I want to preface, do you remember last year when we talked about the Broncos and we talked about Drew Lock? And you were like, Chelsea, do you think that this is Drew Lock's year? And I was like, I don't think he's that bad. Yikes. That take did not go over well, eh? Oh, yeah. Not my best look. Anyways, not to relive the past. I also am in pain having to pick one of these to be my starter, as I imagine the teams are as well. On the plus side, Daniel Jones hasn't had a butt fumble yet. So there's that. Drew Lock's name is pretty cool. So he has that going for him. He's also unarguably the starter in Seattle. So
oh my gosh.
That is something the other two guys can't say because they're competing. So he has that. Trubisky looks pretty good in those really ugly Steelers uniforms that make them look like bumblebees. So, I would say that he has the coolest uniform of all three of them. Yeah, it's rough. I suppose that I will take Mitch Trubisky because I think he has the most promise of all three of them. So I'll start Trubisky. I will bench Daniel Jones because at least Daniel Jones can run the ball. And he has that going for him. So good job. So I guess that means that Drew Lock is going to be cut. No offense to Drew Lock. I was high on you last year, dude. You came from Missouri. I mean, you look so cool, and then you were on the Broncos, and you had a halfway decent offense around you, to be honest. But then people got hurt, which was not your fault. But yeah, I'm really struggling to find positives. Not about them as people. I'm sure they're great people. But as football players, admittedly, I am that's all I got.
I feel like you just hit them with he's a nice guy type of saying. That's what that felt like. You know what I mean? I don't know, just he's a nice guy.
I'm just not that impressed with your footballing skills, but
exactly. That's what that felt like. Shout out to anyone who's been told that. Rip you. But
yikes.
Oh my goodness. This is a fun one. I'm not gonna lie. I could not take Chelsea seriously for a second there. I'm just like, what is this? But also, I mean, maybe to some people you're laughing at these people expenses. Look, this is not meant to be serious. One, it is just football. It is not personal.
I'm sure
2.
you guys are great dudes. You're better at
Mhm.
football than both of us are by a country mile. So,
Exactly.
hey,
Like to be in
and
the
you're making
NFL.
more money than we are. So,
True. True.
hey,
Exactly. So I just think, in my opinion, that's the order I'm going to go with. We pretty much agreed on the same one here. So,
I
anyways,
think that my reasons for them being good quarterbacks were better than your reasons, though.
moving on, we have our last bit of this section here. Matthew Stafford, Derek Carr, Dak Prescott. I can go first here. I'm going to start Matthew Stafford. Why? I mean, I know it's a team thing, but he has the biggest accomplishment. And he led that clutch drive in the Super Bowl. Threw it
I have a
perfect to
question.
Cooper Kupp. Hmm.
Are you going to take Matt Stafford with his elbow tendonitis?
I mean,
Because apparently that's a thing.
look, ignoring that, I'm kidding. That's tough. I mean, injury is definitely tough. I guess I'm just looking at like
But I mean,
how
Dak also messed his knee up, and so did Carr. Sorry, Carr, that was the Colts. So really, they've all had their massive injury problems.
exactly
So
everyone
it
gets
kind of
injured. It's
evens it
fine.
all out, you know?
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna go with Matthew Stafford here just because I mean, he's shown he can be clutch in big time games. He has played well even on bad teams before, like the Lions. He made them interesting to watch for Lions fans for years. And I do think he's clutch. I am going to bench Dak Prescott. And the reason being because I do think Dak has a higher ceiling than Derek Carr. I do think they're very similar, but if you notice, like Dak can put up some really good numbers. Yes, Derek Carr can as well, to any Vegas Raiders fans listening here. But I don't know. I feel like Dak Prescott has shown overall that he has been the better quarterback. I mean, in my opinion, you don't really hear about Derek Carr being a top 10 quarterback. Like, you don't really see many people arguing that. I think he's solid, but I think Prescott is a little bit better, even though I think in some of these playoff games he struggles, like the last one. Dude, what are you doing on that last play? And if that was the coach's call as well, doesn't matter. That was a terrible idea. He should have been like, this is a terrible idea and done his own thing because what was that? Like, why would you run the ball there? That was dumb. Continuing with this, anyways. Um, yeah, I'm gonna put Prescott on the bench. He has shown at times he can put up some huge numbers in games and be incredible. Whereas Derek Carr has shown he could be very good at times, but I would never say it. I I wouldn't say shown flashes of incredible, in my opinion. He's solid. He's good. He gets your team in the playoffs. He can win you games. And he might even be a guy you could maybe win a Super Bowl with. But of these three, that's my order.
Honestly, I think that this trio is probably the most difficult for me of all of the ones that we've done. Um, so I'm gonna start backwards. I'm gonna cut Derek Carr. Not that he's bad, but in comparison to Prescott and Stafford, like you said, he's never really been considered a top 10 quarterback, not even in the best parts of his career. Doesn't mean he's bad by any stretch. It's just, he's just not as up there as other people. I feel like early, if it was, a couple of years ago, I feel like I would definitely take Prescott over Stafford because Prescott there for a while, he looked almost unstoppable. He was really, really, really good. But he dealt with some injury issues. He dealt with his running back being hurt. Now the Cowboys, being the smart team that they are, decided to ship off his number one receiver and keep the guy who's still recovering from an ACL tear and won't be back in playing until the year is half over. So, in my opinion, that did not really do Dak any favors. um, and yeah, and one of the guys they picked up in free agency got hurt because, of course, they did. So that's just unfortunate for him in particular. I mean, I think that Stafford unarguably, in my opinion, has the best receiver on his team in the league. I mean, the dude just won the Triple Crown. You don't just win the Triple Crown if you're second or third best. You win it if you are the best. And it doesn't happen that often. Cooper Kupp is a game changer. And, we always talk about quarterbacks elevating the play of people around them. Honestly, I think you could say the same thing about Cooper Kupp. I think that Cooper Kupp elevates the play of the other receivers around him just because of how talented he is, which is just so fun to see. You just love when you see a guy who just really wasn't all that coming out of college, just, explode onto the scene and become something that people never expected. That's always fun. So I'm gonna go the same way as you, Chris. I'm gonna start Stafford over Prescott. I think that Prescott has a higher ceiling, but I think that Stafford is more reliable. And because of that, I'm going to go with Stafford. I'm going to bench Prescott. Prescott runs more than Stafford. I think that he's more athletic than Stafford. I think that he is stronger than Stafford. I mean, he has a big arm. There's a lot to love about Dak Prescott, but he's younger. He can be more irregular with his decision making than Stafford can be, especially Stafford on the Rams. Now, I'm aware Stafford was not perfect with the Rams, and he was not perfect with the Lions either, not arguing that. But I'm saying if I'm going to pick one decision maker over another, I'm probably going to pick Stafford over Prescott just because Prescott is still learning and he is just more of a risk taker, I feel like, than Stafford is. And I am more of one who prefers reliability over risk taking, even if it means my chances of winning are less, because at least I know I have a chance every time I go out there rather than being a regular and not knowing one way or the other. So that's why I'm going to take Stafford. I'm going to put Prescott on my bench because I think Prescott is unarguably better than Derek Carr. And I'm going to cut Derek Carr, not because he's bad, but just because he's never been considered top 10. And I feel like the other two, especially after last year, especially with Stafford, definitely was top 10. And even Prescott being hurt is still top 10, if not fringe top 10. I feel like Derek Carr is probably somewhere between 13 and 15 best in the league. And I think that Stafford and Prescott are not there. I think they're, lower than that or higher or whatever. They're, in the top 12 and Derek Carr isn't. So that's kind of my reasoning. I mean, what do you think, Chris? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think as far as the order you ranked them, I don't know about Stafford top 10, but well, with all these three, like I think it's pretty interchangeable. The bottom of the top 10. I think Stafford last year you could argue was there at the top 10. Dak Prescott for a while led a very balanced offense between passing and the running game. Honestly, the Cowboys should have been better than they were last year. They had
The
stars
Cowboys
on defense.
always are supposed to be better than they are every year. Remember?
That's true. True. But I think the Cowboys had everything. They had receivers, they had the quarterback, they had line, they had running back, they had
even their
defense.
tight ends were good. Dalton Schultz is a sleeper.
So I would say that I think they underachieved, but I do think this year, I think Dak Prescott's I think he'll be better. And I think that between him and Stafford, it could be interchangeable. But as of last year, I think Stafford was better. But yeah, so just kind of moving on to that was our topics of start one, bench one, cut one. Now we just want to talk a little bit. We've got a fantasy football draft coming this weekend, and we're excited for it. And I know a lot of you all are going to have your fantasy drafts and whatever lined up. So Chelsea in our league has the number one pick, and
I do.
Of course, she's going to go. I could already tell you who she's going to go with, Jonathan Taylor.
Gasp.
I mean,
comes as a surprise to absolutely no one.
Exactly. Meanwhile, your boy here is stuck at pick number 8. I mean, like.
Okay, but to be fair, that is not that bad. In a 14-man league, which is what we're in, it's better to pick lower. I don't get to pick again until like halfway through the second round.
But
you get to pick almost back to back.
Not really at 8, I feel like. I'd rather be lower.
I mean, that's
personally.
fair. But even still, you pick closer in between your picks than I do. I literally have to wait like a round and a half before I can pick again.
That's true. Yeah. So
Am I mad about it though? No. But, it is what it is.
Chelsea, what's your strategy? Are you going running back heavy? I mean, obviously you're going to pick Jonathan Taylor first, but
I mean, obviously.
do you think like running back heavy is going to be your start at the beginning, or what are you thinking?
I mean, I don't think that I won 2 fantasy football championships back to back if I was not going running back heavy. To me, fantasy football, running backs in fantasy football are like pitchers in fantasy baseball. You can never have enough because inevitably one will get hurt and you will need a solid replacement. So, yes, unless there is a spectacular wide receiver on the board when I pick in the second round, I normally double dip running back just because it's so important. Like, I could argue that having a solid running back as your flex might be more important than having a solid wide receiver as your flex. Because wide receivers, they're so much more abundant in the league than top tier running backs are. I mean, you can have a guy come out of absolutely nowhere when someone gets hurt on a team and boom, they're like automatically top 10. For example, a sleeper guy this year, Romeo Doubs on the Green Bay Packers. Who on earth knows who Romeo Doubs is before like training camp? Literally no one. Like, I don't even think that Packers fans really knew who Romeo Doubs was. But the dude in training camp, which is, you preface because it's training camp and preseason, you preface, but the dude looks elite. Like, he's looked really good. So, I mean, you can have a guy like Romeo Doubs come out of nowhere and put up 800 yards on the season versus a running back you get off the waiver wire who might put up 500 yards the whole season. Might. Which is why I feel it's so important to just load up on running backs early and often. Because if you don't, I mean, that's where so many of your points come from. They come from running backs. If you have a running back who has a 47-yard day and no touchdowns, like, that's not even 5 points. But if you have a running back who only gets put in at the goal line and gets 3 touchdowns one game, like, you're playing with fire there. So I just think it's more consistent. Like, you can always bet upon running backs getting snaps. Like, with receivers that aren't absolutely top tier, sometimes you just don't know. Like, I just think it's more risky.
True. I don't really blame you for running backs. I mean, a running back does have an easier time getting the football than a wide receiver. Obviously, wide receivers can put up much bigger numbers than a lot of running backs. Not saying they
unless
can't,
you're in
but
a committee, though. I mean, if you're in a committee, it's in the air. But, the Derrick Henrys and the Jonathan Taylors and the Dalvin Cooks of the world, like, they are the dog, like, they are the guy. You go somewhere like Cleveland, like, yeah, Nick Chubb is really good, but Kareem Hunt is right there, ready to steal snaps. And I've seen people take both of them out of fear that Nick Chubb will lose snaps.
All right, there you go. Now, question. Is Christian McCaffrey a first-round fantasy pick?
So I think that he is, but you are playing with fire if you take those of you who are considering taking Christian McCaffrey, you are playing with fire. Like, for me, between McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, and Derrick Henry, McCaffrey would be third for me. And I'm high on McCaffrey. Like, I really like McCaffrey. If McCaffrey is healthy, he's arguably the best running back in the whole league over Taylor and Henry. And people have forgotten about that because he's been so injured the past couple of years. But when he's healthy, the dude is elite in both parts of the game. People forget that he carried the Panthers literally on his back for years, like, by himself. So it's just with the injury history and the fact that he's on a bad team, it's not so much that you think that he's going to get snaps stolen from him. I mean, we saw the experiments last year with, everyone that was taken, and Chris is rolling his eyes because he knows where I'm going with this, with Chuba Hubbard and everyone else. We saw the experiments. They didn't go well. So there's going to be no one who knows fantasy football who's going to be disputing the fact that McCaffrey is going to get 98% of the running back snaps. Like, he will. It's just, is he going to get injured? I will say he's had a good offseason. He's had a good preseason so far. He's had a good camp. He's looked really healthy. Like people have been saying that like this is like the healthiest he feels in like a long time, which is good news for fantasy. But it's just are you willing to use your top pick on someone so risky? And I mean, I think that you could use that argument on Derrick Henry to a degree as well. I mean, he had that foot injury last year, and obviously he's Derrick Henry, and people are still going to take him, and he's healed now. But I mean, even still, Derrick Henry with a foot injury, like, what's to say that that foot isn't more sensitive now and couldn't get hurt again? Like, if Derrick Henry goes out of the Titans team this year, the Titans are not going to win games. They are worse than last year. Like, they are not going to win very many games if Henry gets hurt. That's just my opinion. You want to debate me on it? Hit me up. You know where to find me. But I just, me personally, at the first pick, I don't even consider him because I'm just scared of his injury history. But that's not to say I don't hope he has a great year.
There you go. I mean, I kind of feel you. It's definitely a risk. I mean, I know all of these guys are risks to take, but when you look at history, I mean, it plays a part. So,
Now,
I mean, yeah.
I feel like there's like different tiers, right, of fantasy running backs. So like the top two are, Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor, right? I feel like most people are going to agree with that. And then you have like the next tier, you have the McCaffreys and the Chubbs and the Dalvin Cooks and like that kind of tier, like the Alvin Kamaras. I will say I would take McCaffrey over Alvin Kamara. So there's that.
Well, I mean, we'll see. I think as far as, how productive he'll be, if you pick him in the first round, on one hand, when he plays, he'll drop 20, 30 points. Not a problem, honestly. And now he has Baker Mayfield, who I'd argue is going to be better than Sam Darnold at getting him the ball. So, I mean, you've got a few things going for you with him, but he's definitely going to be risky. But I'm going to be honest. I think in our league, I think he's going to be taken. I think he'll be gone in the first round,
I
especially in a
think he'll
14.
be taken in the first round in most leagues.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that he's solid enough to take in the top two, but to not pick him at all in the first round would be crazy.
I agree. So I just thought that was kind of interesting to think about. For me, I probably will go running back. I've gone receiver before and it just doesn't really pan out. Throw back to the time I had like the number one pick and I picked Le'Veon Bell when he,
good times.
did not play the whole year. That one was hurtful. Not
Good
gonna
times.
lie. I literally would have been better off picking a bench player and would have scored more points.
At least you got Vance McDonald in that draft.
It's true. That's my boy right there. And so I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. I think Jonathan Taylor's a safe pick. Honestly, like I know it's like, haha, Chelsea Colts fan, but like actually, no, it seems to me like he's a safe pick. There's not really a reason to not take him.
He's
one.
the only player on the entire Colts team that is not playing a single snap in preseason. That's how valuable he is.
Mm-hmm. So for me, I'll probably go running back, but we'll also have to see what's there because number 8, a lot of the top running backs get taken. So,
Hey, I'm just saying, if I was put in your position and it was either like Alvin Kamara or Cooper Kupp, I'd probably take Cooper Kupp, not gonna lie.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel you on that. I think I might go quarterback like as early as third round. Reason being, my quarterback by the end of the draft last year was Trevor Lawrence. Now,
which was not a bad pick in hindsight.
He put up like no fantasy points last year for a lot of the games.
But I'm saying outside of fantasy, like taking him was not a bad pick in hindsight. Like he's Trevor Lawrence and he was supposed to be good.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not to say he won't be good this year. He might very much improve, but yeah, that that didn't work. I took a risk by saying, let's take the number one quarterback in the draft, and it did not pan out.
At least you are not our friend Chris and you didn't take 7 quarterbacks. and then realized that you can't take 7 quarterbacks, and then it messed your whole year up. So at least you weren't that guy.
There you go.
Shout out to Chris. Maybe don't do that this year. We all need quarterbacks. Please don't hoard them.
Exactly. Trying to use them as trade bait is what it was. Now, but the thing is, last year I traded for Justin Herbert middle of the year. That saved the season. Justin Herbert put my fantasy team on his back. He had to drop like a 40 bomb one game just for me to win one of those weeks. And I'm like, dude, I love you, man. So honestly, Herbert's not a bad pick. I feel like for fantasy stats, I'm going to be honest. I think the best fantasy quarterback is Josh Allen. I think because, Patrick Mahomes and those guys, they'll throw touchdowns. But I will say he's not going to have Tyreek Hill this year. And who scored a lot of those touchdowns? Tyreek Hill. So I'm not saying he's going to be bad or not throw a lot of touchdowns. I'm just saying that could be a huge impact.
The offense is going to look unarguably different. Even with Juju Smith-Schuster and Valdez-Scantling, it's still going to look so different. But honestly, it might pan out better for the Chiefs because there's more high-quality, above-average targets for Mahomes rather than just Kelsey and Tyreek. Outside of the fact that people couldn't stop Tyreek, they knew who the ball was going to. Very rarely did, Mecole Hardman or, other guys that were not those top 2 catch touchdowns. People knew who the ball was going to go to. So with him being gone, it might honestly benefit the offense more because it'll force the defense to spread out more and cover everyone. And that might lead to a Kelsey getting open more often. So we'll see, but I don't necessarily disagree with you when it comes to Tyreek being gone. I mean, I think that is a humongous loss. He was an essential part of their offense, and him not being there, it's going to be interesting to see how they recoup because that's what Mahomes, quote unquote, grew up around, right? That's what he was accustomed to. He doesn't have that anymore. So it'll be interesting to say the least.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I just think the reason Josh Allen will be the better fantasy quarterback is because he runs, he throws, he does everything. And his team is built to win a championship this year. Literally, I would argue that the Bills are championship or bust this year. I think anything less than going to the Super Bowl is a disappointing year. I'd say maybe even going to the Super Bowl and losing it might be disappointing. Now, it's not to say that they need to put those expectations on themselves, but I don't know. I feel like they are built to win this year, along with a lot of other teams are too. But I think Josh Allen will be the best fantasy quarterback this year.
I have a question. So I've heard a lot of talk about a sleeper guy who may potentially be taking over as the best fantasy quarterback this year. You know who that guy is?
Who's that?
Jalen Hurts, which I think is interesting. Not only does Jalen Hurts have AJ Brown now, which is a huge, huge, huge acquisition for him. He still has a really good tight end room. He still has other good receivers. I'm pretty sure his O-line has improved as well. I'm pretty sure his defense has improved. And I mean, I would say that the dude runs more than Josh Allen does. So if he can pull together a strong year in passing, honestly, he might be a top 3 fantasy quarterback. Now, that's risky, right? He could be. So if you're looking to be risky as a fantasy player, take Jalen Hurts and take him later. Load up the rest of your team. You could get away with taking Jalen Hurts later. But, not everyone is willing to play those cards, right? Not everyone is a risk taker. Some people would rather just take Lamar or, Mahomes or whoever and just expect greatness every week. But honestly, I could see Jalen Hurts being a pretty good fantasy quarterback. I mean, what do you think about that, Chris? Do you think that has any legitimacy or weight behind it?
Yeah, I think that Jalen Hurts definitely could be top of the line there as far as fantasy QBs go. Like you said, he's got the weapons now, and this Philadelphia team might be underrated, to be honest with you. They very much could be. We don't know. And to be honest, since the Super Bowl, Philadelphia has kind of fallen off in a lot of ways. They've still had, I mean, they still made the playoffs last year, but to be honest, it was not a good showing for them. They looked like they did not belong there, in my opinion, during that game. So I don't know. I think they're going to try and get better. I think they have a shot at it. I don't know. I definitely agree with you, though, that Jalen Hurts is going to be a risky pick to take. And if that's what you're into, then, go for it. And, to be honest, risk takers makes fantasy more fun, in my opinion. So
That's fair. I can agree with that. I think it's interesting. I mean, if you look at how his team has changed since last year, I don't think there's any arguing that his team is better on offense this year. I mean, that's just how it is. So, I mean, last year his best receiver was a rookie, and this year his best receiver is AJ Brown, who during his good years is arguably, a mid, 6, 7, 8 best receiver in the league when he's on. So, I mean, he's going to really change their offense. And they still have Dallas Goedert, too, who is a really underrated tight end, in my opinion. I mean, Zach Ertz left, and everyone thought that, Philadelphia was going to implode. And in comes Dallas Goedert, the nobody. And bam, it's like, oh, they're fine. Never mind. Bye, Zach. So it actually ended up working out better for them. And they have a running back room, too. So they have a lot of different guys who can do a lot of different things. It's going to be very interesting. I think that Sirianni is a good coach. Hopefully he can do something with that team. He used to be the Colts offensive coordinator. We're just sharing coaches and quarterbacks and, everyone. So you always want to see, a homegrown-esque guy succeed. But no, I think the Eagles are sleepers. Kyle, if you're listening to this, we think the Eagles are sleepers. Honestly, seeing how the injuries have decimated the Cowboys so far, and seeing how Dak is coming back from an injury, how, Zeke is trying to have a rebound year, how their receiver core is looking quite depleted. I mean, honestly, I don't think the Giants are going to put up a fight in the NFC East. No one does. Washington, probably not. They'll probably be below average. It's going to be a two-man race between the Eagles and the Cowboys, like it always is, because the NFC East is so boring every year, and all of the games on Thanksgiving are literally 7-3. And it's like, could we show any more boring games on holidays than NFC East games?
Get that out of here. We want to see the Cowboys.
No, I don't. I want to see someone interesting. Give me Justin Herbert or Russell or someone that's not the NFC East, please. I cannot deal with another Washington Giants Thanksgiving matchup in prime time. Please don't do that to me again. But no, I think that you look at the Cowboys roster, I mean, I definitely think that it's not as strong, especially on offense this year, especially when it comes to receivers. And the Eagles improved in that area. Now, I think Dak is a better quarterback. I mean, Dak Prescott is better currently than Jalen Hurts, but it'll be interesting. I don't know. The Eagles might be more rounded this year.
Well, there you have it. You guys, let us know in the comments below what your fantasy picks are going to be. Who you going with? Who's going first? Who are you like, no way I'm picking them? Let us know all of that, and we're going to let you know how our fantasy drafts go definitely next week.
Chris is going to take Vance McDonald at 8 and to shock the world.
Not even in the league, I think, but
People, that hasn't stopped people from taking Tim Tebow. He's not in the league either.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, okay, so I think that's going to pretty much wrap it up for today. So Chelsea, you want to go ahead and lead us in the outro here?
Yeah, so thanks for listening, guys. Tune back in next week for more content. In the meantime, to get your fill of football news and opinions and everything else, follow us on Twitter at LaunchCodesFB and on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at LaunchCodesFootball. I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Chris.
And we will see you next week.
See ya.
Later.